So this morning we finished the morning by talking about the three components of self-compassion when unpleasant experiences arise, which were being mindful of the feeling, being kind to yourself, having kind self-talk, and then seeing what you experience as a common experience, as a shared experience, by thinking that there are many other sentient beings experiencing something similar than you, thinking that what you experience is maybe nothing compared to others, and reminding yourself we are human beings, and all human beings experience suffering, right? Nobody is free of suffering. We often feel isolated when we suffer. So actually, all things similar, right? and then when if somebody comes to you with their problems, how compassion listen, and then there was not much compassion. And then we started talking about, do we need somebody to talk to when we are suffering, And then how do we find them if we are one of the kind that says, I actually don't like to listen? And so we left off there, right? Yes. And I think what I perceive is that there is such an aversion to suffering, right? Just forget about it. Don't talk about it. Right? And I think nowadays, there is actually so much suffering in the world, also in our own individual world, that we feel like we do not know how to be with that. Too much, it's too much, it's too much, right? And then when we feel it is too much, then it is very difficult to listen to others who have suffering, right? We already have enough to cope with. So what we can do, I don't know, you tell me if you like to do that. We can do a little meditation in which we practice these three components of self-compassion with ourselves. So you get a little bit of idea what you can do when you are suffering, and how you can cope with your own suffering, or how you can be with your own suffering in a way that it is helping you to digest that suffering, so that you can move on quicker, so that you can let it go quicker, right? Then when you know how to do that, then maybe the suffering of others becomes, I think the more we experience our own suffering, the better we understand the suffering that others experience, right? So then when somebody is talking and they start repeating, right, then oh, this is the dissatisfaction, right? So you say, you already told me this story twice. Now you're doing it for the third time. Are you aware of that, right? So you get some skills where you know the suffering, you know how the mind works, and then so you have some skills there that you can then give to your friend, right? And you say, are you aware you're telling me this for the third time? And he might say, no, this time it's different. And you say, no, you actually, and you are, because of your experience, you become confident. Say, no, you actually repeated it 3 times. And then you say, I think you might suffer from dissatisfaction, right? Then you talk about the essence, right? It's not about that we need to listen. Compassion is not just we listen, right? Without helping the person to actually go to the point, right? I find that a little bit torture. Oh, no, I have to listen. No, but listening is active, right? So you listen, and if something comes to your mind that might be helpful to that person, you bring it up. You're repeating yourself, bring it up and see what happens. Or you think that's rude?
They might find it rude.
Do you think it's rude?
Just someone tells me that I'm repeating my problems again.
Yeah, but that is not what we say, right? I'm not going to say, hey, you're repeating your problems again and again. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, are you aware that you're telling me the story for the third time? That is different, right? Then you can say, because I still have a feeling of love and compassion for you, and I just bring something in your awareness. That's not telling you, telling me the story for the third time. That comes from aversion, right? Oh, again, I have to listen to you. That's aversion. No, I'm not coming from aversion. I'm coming from compassion. I hear this for the third time, right? And I stay with you. I stay connected with you.
Venerable, what does it indicate? You said dissatisfaction?
Dissatisfaction.
With what?
With life, with anything in life.
Okay.
Is it dissatisfaction like about that I've told her once and twice, but I still need to tell her thrice for the third time? I'm still not satisfied getting it out of my
Yes,
system.
yes, yes, yes. Yes. So shall we do a little meditation? And then, so what I want you to take in mind is some kind of hurtful experience that you have had, but don't take a huge hurtful experience, right? Take a small one or a medium one, something that you feel you can handle being with it. You might not like it to be with it, especially when you're on your own, but you feel like, okay, I can allow that to arise today. All right? Not too big. So you make sure that you sit comfortable. You feel your body. And you are aware of you sitting and breathing. And then call to mind something that has hurt you in the past, in the recent past, or maybe the past a little bit further away. And make sure that you take something that is slightly hurtful, medium hurtful, but not very hurtful. It is uncomfortable to be with it. And so while you call that to mind, watch what you feel in your body and where you feel it. And there might be that feeling of hurt or that feeling of discomfort popping up. You can feel that anywhere in your body, but often it is felt in the stomach or in the heart or in the throat. So wherever you feel it, bring your awareness there. And you can imagine that you are breathing through that hurtful feeling. You are with your breath at the feeling. And while you breathe through your hurtful feeling or unpleasant feeling, you investigate that physical experience that you have. What is it? How does it feel like? Does it have any color? Does it have any structure? If you would touch it, how would it feel like? And you try to make a really clear picture of that feeling that is sitting there, that hurtful or unpleasant feeling. And while you have that clear picture in mind, you breathe, you bring your breath in that feeling that you have, or in that image of the feeling that you have. And you are very aware of your suffering. And you imagine that if you would meet your best friend who had this type of suffering, what would you say to him or her? And then say that to yourself. Use soothing words, calming words, loving words, warm words. And you keep breathing through that hurt while talking kindly to yourself. You know, when your friend is with you and is complaining about his or her hurt, they need to repeat that a couple of times. And you listen deeper, and you feel into their hurt. You really connect with their suffering. And so in the same way you connect with your own suffering. And it is okay to suffer. We all suffer. It is part of our life. And as human beings who are born on this planet, we all come with some suffering. And so the best way to deal with that is to take it on. You know, so this is your turn. This is your share of the suffering. And you take it voluntarily while you keep breathing through it. And while you keep acknowledging that you are suffering. Talking kindly, gently to yourself. And observe what happens to that feeling, to its shape, its color, its structure. Observe how it is changing. And observe how it clears your mind. When we stay with the painful feelings, we are mindful of them. And we speak kind and gentle to ourselves. And we are willingly taking on that suffering. The suffering becomes less, and the mind becomes less clouded and more clear. Notice that in your own mind. And you keep breathing through the feeling until it completely disappears. And then you bring this meditation to a conclusion. Maybe you feel you're done with it. great. Maybe you feel you have to return to this feeling, to do a little bit more work on it later. And so you can say that to yourself, that I know, I'm aware it's not completely finished, but I will come back. And then when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. How was that?
Was kind, being kind.
What was kind to being kind to yourself? Yes. Makes a difference. Yes. How was it?
Same.
Same. It's a good feeling to be kind to yourself.
Brings you to an ease.
Huh?
Brings you to an ease.
It brings you to an ease. You can see the relaxation happening in the mind, right? And in the body, that.
And going away.
And then it goes away.
Yeah,
Same.
little piece.
More peace.
Having a friend right there while we are suffering.
Right.
Sooner or later.
The friend is right there. Fantastic. Fantastic.
When you said that, give it an image, the pain that you're feeling, what does it look like? I sort of imagine like that the character that kids play with just pops up from a boundary. But I had kind of a brownish, spiky kind of creature. Although it represented my uneasiness or something, but eventually I saw that it was actually representing the other person's need, longingness for love, for acceptance, for these things.
It wasn't even yours.
So somehow there was a connection with
Well, was it yours? So sometimes we carry something with us that we identify with, that we think it's ours, and then we realize, oh, but it is their pain. Right? So if that is the case, you just say, oh, I made a mistake. This is not mine. So when it is not yours, you can never resolve that pain. Right? You can be kind to you can sit with and nothing is going to change. If that is the case, you have to think, maybe this is not my pain. Maybe I'm carrying the pain of somebody else. When I'm carrying, that person cannot resolve their pain. I better give it back so they can resolve their pain. Right? So it is important to notice. So you can hand it. Sometimes we do that. We take over the pain of others. I cannot explain how it happens, but it happens. You know. Then we cannot resolve that.
even though my suffering is linked to something that the other person accepts.
Right.
But at the same time, eventually I see that the person also said that. It's like some creature down in the dumps inside a well, trying to breathe, trying to get out, that kind of suffering. That was the visual image that kind of came.
Yes. Yes. And so these visual images can help us to understand what is going on, and then also to find a solution, right? If some image comes spontaneously, we can use our fantasy to say, okay, what can I do? What needs to happen for the suffering to go, right? And then you visualize that and see if that works. Right? It's a very powerful meditation. So, was the suffering as big as you thought it was?
No,
Not? Not really. Sometimes we have this aversion, right? I don't want to feel it, I don't want to feel it. And then it feels like, wow, this is so big, you know, I will not be able to cope. And then the moment we start looking at it, it's like, it's not that big. But with our aversion, we push it away, and then the suffering becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, that we feel like, I cannot cope with that, you know. But what we do is we remove the aversion by being with it, by being mindful of it. The aversion goes away. Then already part of that is gone. Then we allow the feeling to arise and we see what it is. Then we comfort it with compassion, right? When we comfort the pain with compassion, or when we meet the pain with compassion, with the wish for it to resolve or to dissolve back into the mind. Once we make that connection with the pain, what happens to the pain? Disappears. The moment we make a connection, it disappears. Right? So what if I say that our pain is a sign of disconnection? Disconnection with something in us. That hurts. We are not whole, right? Sometimes we feel broken. Sometimes we feel part of us is not living. Sometimes we feel part of us is missing. Sometimes we feel parts of us are not functioning well, right? But these are all places where we have disconnected from ourselves. At a time that we did that in order to kind of save ourselves. Right? At a certain moment in time, that was the best thing that we could do, disconnect. It's maybe too painful for us to be able to digest at that moment. But when we disconnect, that disconnection itself is the pain. Right? We think if somebody hits me, I'm suffering from the hurt of the hit. But if somebody really hits me bad, I can suffer from that hit long time after the physical pain has gone. Right? So where does that suffering come from? Comes from us, right? Us still reacting to the hit. So our reaction to what has happened to us often causes us to connect from us feeling from that wholeness that we can experience. Right? We feel something is damaged in us. But we do that to ourselves by reacting to it. The moment we can really listen to the pain that is there, the reaction stops. Because there is connection. Then the reaction stops, then the pain is gone. So I feel, they say compassion is the quality of healing. When there is compassion, healing takes place. Right? But I feel compassion is a lot about connection. When I can be there in the pain, I connect in the pain is gone. When I cannot connect because I think, oh, it's too painful, it's too much, it cannot heal. It can only heal when I go there and be with it. Connect with it. Be present with it. Then it naturally dissolves. Right? This is one of the most magical things from the mind. If you get this one, you can free yourself from so much suffering.
But it's really hard to connect with the pain.
It's really hard to connect with the pain, right?
When initially,
yes, it is.
When the incident just happened.
Yes.
But like after some time.
Yes.
It is a bit easier.
Yes. But why is it hard to connect with the pain? Because the aversion is there to disconnect you from the pain. Right? So your aversion disconnects you. Then you have to kind of fight your own aversion, right? You go against your own aversion. Your aversion says, I need to protect you from this pain by pushing it away. But the real healing comes when we come close to the pain and say, okay, what is that? I want to connect with it. Right? And yes, sometimes it needs time. Sometimes it needs years. Right? We can have so much pain it takes years to reconnect. Sometimes a whole lifetime. It's all we do, trying to reconnect. Right? But if you can see that every time that you can reconnect with a little part of you, your life improves on all levels. You have a better relationship with yourself. You have a better relationship with others. Right? Every connection that we can make is worthwhile. Right? So don't think, oh yeah, I have a lot of pain, but my pain is not important. I'm going to work for the pain of others. Right? This is not going to work. We need to know actively what pain is, how to be with pain. And if we can be with our own pain, then how can we be with other people's pain? Would that help? No? You have to say yes. If you can be with your own pain, if you know how to do that, and when you do that, you feel like, oh, this makes it much easier. Then when other people start talking about their pain, would that be easier? Right? You have some tools there, right? And what I also feel myself is when we have a pain and we are fighting that with our aversion, the fighting clouds the mind, right? The aversion clouds the mind, it disturbs the mind. But the moment we can connect with that pain and we can be with it and it starts to dissolve, that clouding is gone. So the mind becomes clear. And so when the mind becomes clear, then some wisdom can shine through. Suddenly you understand. So she understood, oh, that's actually something from somebody else that I'm carrying, right? You can only see that when you start looking for it. Right? So you get wisdom. Your wisdom starts to develop. When you have that wisdom, and you know how to be with your suffering, then when other people come with their suffering, you know how to be with them in a way that when they have told their story, they feel kind of healed. They feel like, wow, that was so helpful to talk to you. Right? We have these friends. I all hope that you have at least one friend that you can go to and tell your story, and you feel like, yeah, that really helps when I talk to him. He understands me. He gets what I'm talking about. He knows what I'm suffering from. When we feel that, our suffering lets go, right? They have done a lot of research with doctors, for instance. They listened to their patients, right? And they were investigating what is actually the healing factor. Is that the pills? Right? So they test Western medicine and homeopathic and other types of medicine. And then they have doctors that that just sit and the people start talking and they start describing and right? And then they have doctors that really listen and say, what's going on for you? The people who had the doctors that really listened were the ones that felt that much more healing took place than any medicine that was prescribed. So it wasn't so much the medicine, but it was the listening ear of the doctor that heals, right? If we go to a therapist, it is not that the therapist is doing the healing, right? The therapist does the listening and goes with you in the suffering, right? Sometimes when people talk to us about suffering, we feel like too much, right? Too much. And we start closing down, like, oh my gosh. When is it, right? We become a little bit restless. We look for excuses to leave maybe the conversation. But we feel like this is so uncomfortable. Suffering is uncomfortable, right? So when we hear too much suffering, we become uncomfortable. Aversion is there. Oh, I don't want to be here. There he starts again. My gosh. Right? But when we have a lot of compassion, we just sit and we open up and we say, pour it in. You know, not that they pour it in with us, but you can stay with whatever they're talking about. When you can stay without reacting with your own aversion, that person feels you are connecting with them. That person will feel, now my suffering is less. Something is gone. Right? That's the quality that we receive when we do this work with ourselves. You're not afraid anymore. But if we have some suffering which is similar to what our friends are suffering from, when they start talking about it, it's like, cannot hear it. It's too much, right? It makes me restless. It makes me very uncomfortable. So that is the limit of our compassion. When we feel that, we have to say, I do not have the compassion to listen to this, you know? Then you can decide where you want to go with that. It's always, I mean, you could even say that to your friend, right? I hear that you have a very deep problem and I wish you could listen to you, but I can feel that I do not have the capacity to listen in the way I would like to. You know, maybe you should talk to somebody else. You can say that. Right? It's quite compassionate to do that. Than to tell your friend, please shut up, you know? Right? So that is also a skill that comes when you learn to know yourself and how much suffering you can experience and bear. And there is nothing wrong with that. Right? We have our limits. And that's okay. All right. So is that enough for compassion for self? I mean, you can understand, you have this. The compassion for others comes quite easy, huh? More easy. We know our suffering. We recognize easier the suffering in others. We can stay better with that suffering when they talk about the suffering. Right? Any questions about compassion for self? Yeah.
If someone feels cheated by somebody.
Somebody feels cheated by somebody.
Yeah. In that kind of suffering, how do you get away? Because that feeling of being cheated is always there.
The feeling of being cheated by somebody. So, and that somebody has not cheated that person.
That person would have cheated because there was a reason.
So somebody has cheated somebody.
Yeah.
So A has cheated B.
Yes.
And now B always feels cheated by A.
Yeah.
And cannot let go of that.
Yeah.
And then, who was the cheater? A. The cheater can ask real forgiveness, right? Say, I see that you're still, because when we cannot let go and we keep projecting, there is still pain, and we cannot forgive. Forgiving means that we stop investing in that event, right?
Okay.
When we have not forgiven yet, we still have aversion to what happened. And we still feel like you should not have done that. You should not have done that. You should not have done that. Right? And the only thing you can say is, I have done that. I have done that. And you have to accept that I have done that.
So is it good to forgive even if you were cheated, for the person to be at peace? It's important that you forgive that person.
For yourself to be at peace, it's very important to forgive, yes. Forgiveness means that you accept it did happen, and that you stop reacting with aversion, which aversion actually says, I wish it hadn't happened. I wish it hadn't happened, right? And you somehow try to undo that, but you can never undo that, never. It has happened. So then you have to do a reality check and says it has happened. So I either move on from that, I accept it, I sit with the pain, I cry it out, I move on, but I'm not gonna once point the finger at that person and say, but you did that. That is not forgiving, right? Either you move on from it with that person or you move on from it without that person. But you don't keep it in the relationship, because every time you will say, oh, but you might be cheating, you're a cheater, right? It's never ending story. Yeah.
It's like scratching the wound. Every time the layer comes.
Every time scratching the wound, you know, and so you have to take off the band-aid and really clean the wound, which means let go of your aversion, fully accept that there is a wound. And then, I mean, if some trust has been damaged, right? So then that other person, the cheater, has to help build the trust, right? They also have to make a kind of a commitment that that is not going to happen again. Right? I think. Yeah. All right, let me look. There's a little thing in the chat. Our deep societal condition interprets our self-compassion as selfishness, and I see so many people not seeking help or denying themselves self-care as they think they are being selfish and feeling guilt. How can we address this? So if we have self-compassion, we can have self-compassion out of selfishness, right? For instance, the way that if we try to free ourselves from suffering by using our attachment and aversion, that is extremely selfish. That is just another samsaric drama, right? That's not real self-compassion that we are talking about. Self-compassion that we are talking about looks very much like renunciation from samsara. Right? All the practices that we went through, that we do in order to develop self-compassion, are exactly the same as the practices that we do for renunciation from samsara. Renunciation from samsara means freedom from suffering. Right? Self-compassion means I do not want to suffer. Not just temporarily, not just today, not just in this life. We want to stop creating the causes for suffering. We want suffering completely removed from our mind stream. That's real self-compassion, right? So don't use self-compassion as, by using your attachment and aversion, being free from what you don't want and having what you want. That's not self-compassion. Okay, cool. So we mistake this very easily, right? So you have to be careful. Also the same with self-love. Self-love, we also feel like I give myself what I want, that's self-love. But that's not self-love. You give yourself more samsara. I mean, that's not really self-love, right? So you need to understand deeper the nature of reality, the nature of samsara, to really understand how do I become free of suffering. And then I wish myself that, and then I practice that myself. Okay? We all get that? Good. So now, suffering. Sorry, guys. You look a little bit hopeless. Suffering is never nice, right? Suffering is never nice. It is like included in the definition that it is something that we do not like, right? So when we talk about suffering, there is this kind of, do we really have to go there, right? We prefer to talk about beautiful qualities and experiences and, as if they all come from naturally without too much suffering. But actually, with whatever you try to achieve, in the Dharma, there is suffering. Suffering is there. But what we do we use methods to make that suffering. First of all, we now have an aversion to suffering, right? So we try to stop that aversion, and then we try to see the benefits of suffering. When we can see, when suffering comes, we can see that there is some benefit there. We might say, another opportunity, right? So normally we see suffering as a burden, right? Unpleasant experiences, no, I don't want it. But what if we say, what an opportunity for learning, right? When I say, I don't like this suffering, there is an aversion. When I say, what an opportunity for learning, there is a kind of embracing of that experience, right? You take it on. So you have dealt with your aversion to it, which is 90% of your suffering. Right? We don't realize that. We create 90% of our suffering in our own mind by not wanting it. So the moment we want it, there's 10% left to be experienced. Easy. Right? So we, in Buddhism we say we are our worst enemies, right? This is really where we are our worst enemies. We keep fighting that negative experience or that unpleasant experience in the hope it is going to go away, in the hope that we don't have to feel it. But the moment we feel it, it's like it's suddenly it's not that difficult anymore. Right? The biggest struggle is to deal with our aversion, to somehow address that aversion. And when you suffer, you cannot say, I don't need to have aversion. Aversion is there. It is an emotional reaction. It will come automatically. So we need to come up with something more clever if we want to have less emotional reaction. So one thing is that we try to do is we try to see the benefits of suffering. Right? Is there benefit in suffering? Or benefit coming from suffering?
If we suffer, we will be able to understand the pain of the others, the people suffering.
Very good. So when we experience suffering, then we can understand the pain of others who experience suffering. True. What else?
Only when your heart breaks, it opens.
Only when your heart breaks, it opens.
I've heard it somewhere.
You heard it somewhere.
Yeah, it's not my-
I thought it was really coming from you, but that's very touching. Only when the heart breaks, it opens. What are the benefits for suffering? If you know anything online, please. Yes. We become more resilient. Yes. So when we can really experience the suffering, we become more resilient.
And it teaches you to remain not unmoved, but to retain your balance in the face of other adversity, whether yours or something else.
Yes, yes, yes. It teaches you to remain more balanced in the face of other adversities. I'm just repeating for the people at home. Yes, true. True.
When you suffer, you learn tools like this. That how tools like this,
Yeah.
the meditations and all, that how to be with that suffering, and that can help others as well as ourselves in the future adversities,
Yes.
the future suffering.
Yes. So if we know how to bear our suffering now, then we know when future things arise, we know better how to be with them, right? Future suffering is definitely going to arise, right? For all of us. Biggest suffering that we can have is when we're going to die. Having to let go of our body, having to let go of our wealth, having to let go of all our friends, our family, letting go of everything that we have cherished in this life, right? That's the big, and then maybe we are in pain, the body doesn't function, the mind doesn't function so well. Huge suffering, right? If we use our life when every time when some suffering comes and we run away, then when the big suffering comes, we have no idea what to do, right? Then the mind gets very disturbed. Then that is going to determine where we go next. But if we take on our suffering and we learn how to be with it, first of all, the mind becomes more, it can bear more pain. When we can bear more pain, the mind has more patience, right? When the mind has more patience, then when other adversities happen, we do not get disturbed so easily. We know what it is, right? When we know what it is and things come to us, then the aversion is not there. There is just that experience. Right? So I think it's a great skill to have. I don't know about you guys. Right? If you could just, and they say you start with the small pains, the small pains, and you can repeat that meditation that we did. You can repeat it at home, and you can do that every day. And in the universities, they have tested people, right? Checked how fast do you build up self-compassion. And they say you do this practice for 2 weeks, and there is a significant difference in your self-compassion. 2 weeks. You feel more relaxed, more at ease, more comfortable with suffering. We use so much of our energy to find more comfort, move away from discomfort. And I mean, they started in the West, but now India is doing fantastic in that, creating more comfortable stuff, right? Couches and mattresses and cushions and whatever. More comfortable. But when there is something more next year, there is again more comfortable, right? There is no end to that. And so when we keep following more comfort, we move away from experiencing a little discomfort. And that discomfort becomes almost unbearable, right? So we cannot bear anything. We just go for more comfort. And then we think we're doing pretty well because we have everything that we want. But then when the suffering hits us, we are lost, right? We have no tools because we didn't use our life to get used to the suffering. We used our life to get more comfort. The mind is like this. When there is discomfort, there is this tendency to walk away from it to find more comfort. So I have a choice in that moment. I can choose to walk away and find more comfort. Then I do not know what it is to be with this discomfort. Or I can stay and feel the discomfort and feel it coming and it is going, and then I'm used to it. Right? Or I walk away. So when you keep walking away, you will never be able to even have the experience that when discomfort comes, it is there for a while and then it changes and then it is gone. But when you have that experience, then your need to keep running away is gone. Right? Because suddenly there is a little feeling of discomfort, but it's not a big deal. But when you start running away, you have to keep running. Right? So getting used to the discomfort is, I think, for me, it's like the best practice. That brings so much benefit. And of course, our whole society tells us that it's really the most stupid thing for you to do. Right? Being with discomfort. Why would you? We have so much comfort here. You just say yes to it. Right? But I think in life, if you want to connect with yourself, if you want to connect with others, then being with discomfort is the best, best learning, brings you the best result in that. Some people are looking now at me with so much aversion. I'm telling you this from my experience, right? Not from out of a book. This is not written in the... This is my experience. I fought my own suffering for many, 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 many years. You know, did a running away many, 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 many years. But yeah, at a certain point, you know, then you hit a wall so hard that you cannot keep running. Then you have to look at it. But what I would like you to do is that you look before you hit the wall, you know. You don't have to keep running until you hit the wall. So somebody says we become stronger and we develop wisdom going through suffering. And you become more compassionate and more empathetic. Yes. And so we learn to know the mind, you know. We learn to know the mind. And then life changes. It's like all these ideas that you had, like this is what the truth is and this is what reality is, suddenly it's like, actually it's very different.
The fear disappears.
The fear disappears, yes, yes. Because that is one of the unpleasant feelings, right? The fear. Also, our whole balance. You know, at the moment we have a consciousness that likes certain things and dislikes other things, right? We call them white and black. We only want to go to the white, we don't want to have the black. And so what we try to do, also when we hear the Dharma, we want to make this white bigger so that this black disappears. Right? We don't want to know about this. We just want to make this more white and bigger so that this disappears. So that we don't see that, or maybe it is taken over, or maybe it just disappears, or maybe something. But we don't want to know about this one, right? So that is what we're doing. When we have this fine. But if we have here the good experiences and here the negative experiences, this is all, we react to both, right? Our reactions is our energy that we carry with us. We want to transform all our energy into the path to enlightenment. Right? The Buddha did never say, there are some energies in me that are really negative and that we should amputate, that we should get rid of that. We only want to have the good energies but not the bad energies. The Buddha never said that. He used all the energy to create the mind of enlightenment. Right? So good experiences, bad experiences, there is energy in there. Transform that so that you can use all that for the path to enlightenment. They all have, all these experiences have, or reactions to the experiences have the potential to become the qualities of a Buddha. Right? So you don't want to get rid of any of them. But you want to shine the light on this one so that it also becomes light, white, right? So that white, everything becomes white. This white and this black, right? This is the duality. If we shine the light on this one, this white changes somehow. You know, it's not the same white. This is the white of the duality. But when I shine the light on the black one, everything becomes of the same nature, which is a different nature than this white one. It is beyond that nature. It's a very different quality. Right? So this, when we practice Dharma, don't just try to make yourself a better person, and then saying, oh, there's certain aspects of me that I don't like. I just push them away and hope they transform one day into something else. Or no, go to all these aspects that you don't like about yourself and all the painful, and work with that, shine the light on that, investigate that. There is most to gain from that. Right? Once that light is there, somehow that duality, that gets pacified. Then we become free. Right? We don't have to fight anymore to be good. Work hard to be good, because by nature we're all good. Right? It's our nature. If we connect with our nature, there is inner goodness, there is loving kindness, there is compassion, is there, all there. But we have disconnected from that nature, and we have started to believe that part of us is not good. And so we need to reconnect with that part that we believe is not good, but in actuality that is good. There's nothing wrong with that. The only thing that is wrong is that we think something is wrong with it. Right? And we can only undo that thought when we really look into it. And we cannot find anything that is wrong. Right? True? So when we have the courage to look into that and to see, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And every time we see nothing wrong with that, at a certain point, we know nothing wrong with me. Right? Then the unpleasantness, all gone. Then there is also no need anymore to run away from something. Right? You become less vulnerable for people who want to hook you with your compassion or with your attachment, Right? You become less vulnerable to that because there's nothing that you want to run away from in yourself. You don't feel that you need to validate yourself with your clothes and with your makeup and with your whatever appearance, right? Or with your car or with whatever. You don't have to validate yourself like that. You know how good you are. You know what kind of human being you are. Right? Then you're so much more relaxed. Right?
Can I say something?
Sure.
So once you understood this, the suffering of the others, and you are at a stage that you accept the
I'm not
other-
sure how you went there from what I just told you.
Yeah. But no,
This is something completely different, right?
Yeah. It is connected to self-compassion once it has benefits for the other person. Also,
Your self-compassion has benefits for the other person. Yeah.
due to the awareness that you get from your own experience, you help the other. Now, once you've understood what the other person is going through, in relation to the hurt that the other person has caused to you, you accept the person for who the person is, as in you understand their suffering as to where their action towards you is coming from. So now if the third person looks at this equation, and the understanding from the third person is that it's more like you, not for lack of better word, like a doormat, that you are subjecting yourself to being treated like a doormat by the other
Right.
person.
So how do you know that you're not being treated as a doormat?
No, that awareness you have yourself that this is not the case, but you can't really argue with the third person because the third person doesn't really have an understanding of the higher concepts, let's say, the teachings. Or so in such a situation, what does one do is to...
So are you treated as a doormat?
No,
No. How do you know that?
because of the fact that the whole bitterness, whole suffering, my own suffering has gone.
Has gone. You have no suffering. So when we are treated as a doormat, we suffer,
Yeah.
right? You don't suffer. So you know you're not treated as a doormat.
Yeah.
The situation is different.
Correct.
So you have that inner experience.
Correct.
And so you could say that to that person. I don't feel that. I don't feel that. I mean, the truth, the reality that we have is our experience.
That also doesn't help. Saying that also sometimes.
But why does it have to help? Why does it have person need to know that you are not treated as a doormat?
No. So the kind of suffering then I engage in is that there's no point talking to this person because the person doesn't really understand my own journey of what I used to feel earlier and
Yes.
now what I feel. And till such time that the person hasn't had her own experience, it's really difficult.
But why do you have to talk about that with that other person? Why is that important for
Because the
you?
other person keeps bringing that up, let's say, from situation to situation.
Right.
Oh, remember that.
So you could tell to the other person, listen, that is my business. Please, you mind your business, I mind my business. Right? If somebody's treating you as a doormat, it is a friend who keeps telling you that you are experiencing something different than you are. Right? So you have to put your boundaries with that friend, what you call a friend. Like, sorry, but this is my life, my experiences. I know what I'm doing, right? And what are you doing in my domain? Really? Right?
Yeah, that.
Please, there is the door. If you would please remove yourself from this is my life, not your life. And then you say, if I suffer from something and I need your help, I will come to you because I like you as a friend. But I have not asked for your help. Nor am I suffering from anything. I know what I'm doing. You might not understand it, that's okay. But you have to mind your own business, not mine. You know, you have to put there a boundary. Okay? Okay, let me see what is here. Okay, no questions.
Actually, many people who think that they know better for you, what is better for you, than you do.
Yeah.
There are many people like that.
They know what they think is better for you.
Yeah.
We do this, right? I mean, if you look into human suffering, we are all here together on this planet and we all suffer, but the way that we pass on suffering to others is incredible, you know, incredible. And we pass it on too, right? If we suffer and we don't like it and we start running around and we start doing things, or maybe if we suffer too much, we might become agitated and then we freak out or whatever. We, in general, when we don't take our suffering, we pass it on somehow, right? And so then minding other people's business is another way of passing on your suffering, you know. I would think, why are you coming in my life to, what is happening in your life that you don't want to be with you? Right? What is happening in your friend's life? That she has the need not to take care of her, but to want to take care of you. Often, there is a lot of suffering, right? If we try to mind other people's business, there is actually so much suffering inside us that we cannot bear. So we start doing everywhere else, solving the problems. And if these problems are all solved, we have the feeling that my problems are going to be solved with that. But it's not the case, you know. So I think, you know, even we taking on our own suffering and generating compassion for ourselves and knowing how to do that, I feel we are contributing to the peace in the world, right? Because we stop reacting in dependence on our suffering. And so our mind becomes more peaceful. We are not passing on the suffering. And so then samsara becomes a little bit better. Right? So really knowing how to take care of yourself. I think if we would all do that, the world would not be in any problems. So even if you do not know how to take care of others, even if you do not develop any compassion for others, if you apply this to yourself, it's already fantastic. But I think the great thing when you start doing this with yourself, what comes with that is that you start to understand others better. You start to see that even when they smile, you start to recognize, they do smile, but I can see that there is something else going on, right? You start to recognize the symptoms. And so then when you say, how are you? And they say, yeah, I'm good. Then you maybe have the courage to say, are you sure? You know? And you keep the connection. And you are with your friend. And you give your friend a chance to say, yeah, actually, I'm suffering from something. Right? And so you have to also make sure that your friend feels safe enough and feels that he has the space to do that. Then when he can say that, even just telling his suffering, and you are really present with him or her, the suffering will become less, right? Do you have that experience when you speak to someone who really listens to you? You have the feeling, they hurt me. That then afterwards your suffering is less. Right? True. So that is the next contribution that we can do. First we have lessened our own suffering. Now we use it just to listen. Suffering goes. Right? We don't listen with our ears, right? We listen with the heart. We listen what is behind the words, not to the words. Right? If you listen behind the words, you get more information. You get the real information. Right? So then when we practice compassion for others, the biggest obstacle that we have to really accomplish that in a broad manner, right? What we try to do in Buddhism, we try to open the heart so much that it is open to everyone. And so we are good with our friends, with our family, with those people that we like. We are, when we practice self-compassion, maybe even okay with people that we don't really know, right? We might. But then the people that we don't like, those who have hurt us, those who are so annoying, how is our compassion for them? Difficult, huh? So we need to do something with the mind, because even when we make this compassion really big that we have, you know, when somebody is annoying or we don't like someone, there is immediately again the aversion. And when the aversion is there, the compassion cannot be there. Right? Compassion, I mean, the compassion that we have for the people that we like, the ordinary compassion that we have at the moment, that is very much based on that what the other person actually does for us. It's very biased, but as long as we receive benefit from that other person, we will be able to have compassion for that person. As soon as we receive harm from that person, compassion is finished, right? So we need to deal with that, our ego, our self, that self-cherishing mind that gets hurt and then says, no, I don't want you anymore, right? Because if we can turn that one around, then we can have compassion for everyone. So we need some reasonings for that. The compassion that is unbiased is based on reasoning. It is not based on attachment. It is not coming with attachment. It is coming from reasoning. Right? Not with an emotion, but from reasoning. That's what we try to develop in the mind. So at the moment we have the people that are naturally close to us, right? In Buddhism we call them friends. Friends, we like them, we like to be close to them, we like to benefit them. Those that we call friends, the reason why we call them friends is because they benefit us. Right? Not because we have joy in benefiting them, but because they benefit us. And then there is a group of sentient beings that we call strangers, in which we don't have any particular relationship with. Right? We don't know them, they're very far away. We sometimes see them, but they don't have any particular attraction or another reaction. They don't cause any reaction in us. And then there are sentient beings that we call enemies. And the enemies are the ones who have harmed us. The enemies are the ones that we do not like. We do not like them because we do not experience, it's not that we don't experience benefit, we experience harm from them. That's what makes them enemies, right? So these are three groups that we work with. Friends, enemies, and strangers, right? We divide people into friends, enemies, strangers on the basis of how much they benefit me. Very selfish, right? There's no reason in that. That is pure emotional, right? That goes beyond, that doesn't go through the rational consciousness. True? It's an emotional reaction, right? No reasoning there. So then Buddhism says you should apply reasoning to undo that emotional reaction. So how should we think? So there are two ways of thinking. One is that we think about sentient beings from their perspective, and we say, instead of saying all sentient beings are different, they are friends and they are enemies and they are strangers, we say all sentient beings are the same in wanting to be happy and wanting to be free of suffering. All sentient beings react from the same emotional place, in the same way as we do. We are all the same in that. We all want to be happy, we all want to be free of suffering. Right? If I start looking at that sameness, if I approach anyone from that sameness, then I can say, so if you want to be happy, I want to be happy, why don't I work for your happiness? Why would I just work for my happiness? You're the same, right? Why do I just choose to work for this one and not for anyone else? While you're all the same as me. Right? You are with so many, I'm only one. But I only want to work for this one and not for all the other ones. I mean, it's like a little bit strange, no? Because we're all the same. So what if I would work for all of you? If I work only for myself, I can only generate the merit of working for one person. But if I start working for your benefit, making you all happy, I get the merit of that many people. Right? For me, much better. Right? If I want to have a lot of merit and to become a Buddha, I need to have a lot of merit. Then the best way is that I work for the benefit of many sentient beings. If I make your happiness my happiness, not out of fear, not out of fear that you don't like me if I don't work for your benefit, but because I can see that you want to be happy. And I, maybe not me, but what we believe, the teachings is what eventually makes you happy, right? So if I can share something from the teachings that is going to help you to find more happiness, that's the best thing that I can do with my life. Right? So thinking we are all the same and wanting to be happy, and you are with many, many, many more than me. It's much more logic also that I'm going to work for others than I'm working just for one person. Right? Knowing that we are all suffering. knowing that we all want to be free of that suffering, knowing that there is a method that can help you to become free of suffering. Right? If I would now just think about my own life, do nothing else, just think about my own life, have good food, good experiences, nice friends, you know, I would totally waste my life. Right? Yeah.
So I am confused with the concept of self-compassion and bodhicitta.
Yeah.
So the people say that our own cup should be full before it starts pouring
Our cups should be full before it starts pouring.
on the others. And also, if I am suffering way too much, should I be okay first and then start serving to others, or I can do both of these things simultaneously?
What does it mean being okay? Do I have to be okay first before I can start serving others? What does it mean I am okay?
Free from suffering.
Free from suffering. So you're going to be first liberated before you going to work for others.
Yeah, that's a question.
That's the question. So what we have been doing this morning is that we said, what do you need to do in order to be free of suffering? Right? So you keep doing that. You not do anything different from that. So you, for yourself, you know, I am doing everything that I can in order to create the causes for suffering, for happiness, right? To create the causes to be free of suffering. So you are taking care of yourself, right? Then by generating the mind that wishes to benefit others, to have compassion for others, I am also benefiting myself. Because on top of everything else that I'm doing to benefit myself, I'm now going to work for others, seeing the great benefit that is going to come for myself by doing that. Right? So when I'm suffering a lot, can I come here and teach? Well, maybe not always, right? Maybe sometimes I have to say, "Oh, now I'm suffering so much." If I would start teaching, I would be so agitated, I would start shouting at people, you know. Maybe then it's not so beneficial when I teach,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Maybe then that day I should take care of myself and deal with my own suffering.
So, should we take care of ourselves, thinking that if I take care of myself, I'll be able to benefit, serve others?
Yeah. So sometimes we have to withdraw in order to regain energy so that we can be of service to others. We do not have the capacity at this moment to work like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, 24 hours a day, only there for sentient beings, right? We don't have that capacity. But it is not that we have to be completely free of suffering, right? Before we can start benefiting others. When we are sitting, whether you're sitting here or here, at a certain point the body starts to hurt, right? Discomfort, right? It's not going to go away. Whether I sit here or here, not going to go away. But if I have the tools to sit here and share what I know, right? It's a better choice than that I think, oh no, I have too much discomfort, I'll sit there. Right?
We can do both of these things simultaneously.
Experiencing suffering and benefiting others. Yeah. I mean, life is still dissatisfactory by nature, right? The dissatisfaction is there, and the suffering of that is there. Whatever we are doing in Dharma comes with suffering, right? I mean, practicing Dharma is hard, right? Because we have to counteract the self-cherishing mind again and again and again and again. And we have to keep not reacting, but we have to respond to that and say, no, you know, I'm not going to follow that, I'm going to cherish others. I'm not going to follow that, I'm going to cherish others. So we sit with the suffering of not being able to give ourselves the comfort that we want at this moment. right? That's also our practice. So that's not going to go away, no. But that's okay, right?
I think from experience I've realized that when you start your own path on this, you by nature start helping others while you're going through it yourself. So it's not like you have to make a constant effort to help somebody, but while you're on your own doing
While you're
that
on your
work,
own path,
yeah,
you also
end up helping
benefit others. Yes, 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 yes. And you have to check what is your capacity of helping others, you know? It is also like how do we help others? What we really want is that how others are becoming free from suffering. And what is really going to free others from suffering is the Dharma, and is their understanding of how to achieve liberation. Right? All the other helping to be free of suffering is like a drop on a hot plate, right? It's like removing some temporary suffering, right? Don't put all your effort in that, because that is a never-ending job. We can run around here like nurses, take care of the sick, right? But the sick are never-ending. The wounded are never-ending. We can do from our side something in that. We can take care of that. But there will be always wounded people. There will be always wounds to take care of, right? And there are also always human beings who like to do that. They do not want to do more than that. That is what their job is. But if you have the capacity to teach the Dharma, right, then although people are wounded, you know that their real wound is that they are holding on to that self, right? Believing into inherent existence. That is the real wound. And then believing that we have to make ourselves constantly feel okay and happy and free of suffering, and doing that with that self-cherishing mind, you know, that is our wound. That's the real wound, right? So sometimes you have to say, you know what, I'm going to study for a long time so that then I can do something that is really efficient, right? And then other people might say, oh, you're so selfish, only studying for yourself. But if you know, no, this is not selfish.
The Bodhicitta mindset is
Right,
that
exactly.
you're taking care of yourself.
You're taking care of yourself, but you also do that so that you can take better care of others, right? And sometimes we need to take time out to do that, to learn skills. And that's totally fine. Okay. So that was one thing, right? We look at everybody, everyone is the same. Then the other way of looking is, well, you know, today you're my friend, but you were not always my friend, right? Because a few years ago I didn't know you. And so you were my stranger. And at that point I didn't care about you. But now you're my friend and you're really benefiting me, so I have compassion for you. You know, I like you and I have compassion for you. Right? But that can change again. Right? You might ask such an annoying question that I think, oh my gosh, there she is again. And then you become kind of my enemy, right? And then if you ask another question, then you're definitely my enemy, right? Then very difficult to have the compassion. So I can reflect like that relationship is actually not so stable. I like you today, but something might happen and you might turn into my enemy, right? Or I might go away and not come back for 3 years and you turn into a stranger again, right? Things like that happen all the time. And so if we can see that our relationships are not stable and that the people that we call friends now, that there was a time that we didn't know them, and maybe there was a time that they actually were our enemy, and something happened and suddenly we become best friends, right? That's possible. And so when we are best friends or we are partners, or it can happen that something happens and we separate and we can't stand each other anymore. No guarantee. Right? No guarantee. And so we, at this moment in this life, we say, I have compassion for those that benefit me. Right? I want to help those that benefit me. But we can think, well, even if in this life you are not benefiting me, in past lives you definitely have benefited me. Right? And whether you benefit me today or whether you benefited me in the past, doesn't make any difference. Right? So when I can see that, especially when we look into the context of that we have been here for numberless lifetimes, that we have taken rebirth numberless times. So we have had many, many, many different relationships with each other. Right? We all have each been each other's mother, father, brother, sister, enemy, killer, rapist. We have done everything with each other. Many, 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 many times. Right? So why would I favor you above you in this lifetime? Just because you benefit me a little bit more than he does. You, so actually I should turn it around. Just joking. When you give presents, right? You make friends, right? You can see that. When we get something from somebody, we like it, no? Then we like the person. You can see this is the way it's beautiful, no? It's just how the mind works. So when we can see the relationships, they are very unstable. So who I like in this life or not like in this life, I should not really let it play a role in how I benefit you and how much compassion I have for you, right? Because we're all the same, that we all suffer. And we all want to be free of that suffering. And we all want to be happy. And so that relationship, I put it on the back burner. It doesn't really matter. Right? So this is how we create equanimity in the mind. And from that equanimity, there is the basis for developing compassion. Right? So everyone is the same. Then how do we develop compassion? We first... we know now that when somebody looks attractive to us or is attractive to us because they're benefiting us, compassion easily comes, right? So if I can see everyone in that same light, then compassion easily comes, right? So then in Buddhism we say the first step is to see how all sentient beings, there are two methods. One says all sentient beings have been our mothers. Mothers in the sense of being that extremely kind person who is there for us 24 hours a day, completely renouncing their own happiness, just taking care of our needs. Right? Mother like that. We might not have a mother like that in this life, but sentient beings have been mothers like that to us many, 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 many lifetimes. Right? So we received a lot of kindness from them. Another way of thinking about sentient beings having been kind to us is by thinking that all sentient beings are kind to us, right? And then we start thinking about, we can think about anything like, where is my clothes coming from, right? Where is it coming from? What is all needed to produce a cloth like that? How many sentient beings are involved doing that, giving their energy the whole day to produce this, right? I am not able to do this myself. When I'm without sentient beings, I cannot produce anything, right? So how kind? Because all the comfort that we have in life comes from sentient beings, right? So that we see as kindness. So you can do both. Thinking about your mother, or you think about sentient beings as being kind, whether they are a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, the stranger that is working on the field, that is doing other things. Sentient beings are constantly working for humanity, right? Producing food, producing clothes, producing, so that we have comfort. How kind. How kind. And then there are so many sentient beings who die in that process. Right? Giving their life. Often not voluntarily. How kind. Right? When we can see the kindness of others, then it's easy for compassion to come. Right? If we see our friend falling down here, we immediately there. Right? Because the friend is kind. And we are wanting to protect that friend, that kind friend. So when we see other sentient beings as kind, there is this wish to protect. It comes naturally. Right? So we don't think, oh, I should have compassion, I should have compassion, I should. When we see the kindness, compassion is there. Because compassion is our nature. Right? So we create the conditions, the mind frame that makes that compassion arises naturally. Another way of saying is that we see sentient beings as attractive. Right? We like to be with them. When we like to be with someone, when they suffer, we feel like, oh, I want to help you. Right? So we want to make, how do we do that? You know, so we have to work with our aversion, right? And we have to see our aversion is just a player in the game that didn't really get it. Right? We have to educate our aversion and say, you have no wisdom, you know, you don't really understand. There's no need to have aversion. These people are kind. And then you think about the kindness. And looking at what you like in somebody, right? Because everyone has aspects that are likable and maybe not so likable. But when you look at the aspects that you like and you reflect on them again and again and again, you know, then also something starts to happen in your heart. Then you like to be with that person. If I'm going to focus on the things that I don't like about you, I don't want to be with anyone, right? And I think in Buddhism, another way of thinking like that is that we all have Buddha potential. So we all have the capacity to become enlightened. We all have the capacity to become bodhisattvas, right? Who are constantly benefiting others. So if I can see that in you, that you have that potential, right? Then you also become more likable, right? And also when I see you like that, you will feel that. And you will feel like appreciated by me. And when you feel appreciated by me, you're gonna do other things for me. You know, and then we somehow create a way of being with each other where we can show the best of what we have, right? And then compassion is naturally there. Can you see that? So the main thing is seeing the kindness of others. And then from there, the wish to repay that kindness comes. And then from there, compassion and loving kindness naturally come. Right? Yeah? Compassion for others is there. And then we don't have to exclude anyone from that. And if there is someone in your life that you find it difficult to have compassion for that person, make that the person, the object of your practice. And think about their nice aspect, their good aspects, their good quality, their kindness. See them as, like in my last life, you know, you can think, for instance, you are treating me in a certain way, that I don't like. And then I can start reacting to you and I don't like you, but I can also think, what if I treated you in last life like that? And you just give me back until I purify it, right? And then I'm going to see you as my brother. And I say, wow, he, by doing that, he's just purifying all my negative karma. That is so fantastic. I'm so grateful to you, And so I keep thinking like that, and I keep practicing that. Then at a certain point I see you and I think, wow, I really like this guy, And then you stop doing what you are doing. Karma finished, right? You have experiences like this. Things can change like that. When the karma is finished of an unpleasant relationship, it changes, right? And if I have the feeling you are my brother, you are my sister, you are my father, you are my mother, if I have that feeling when I'm with you, then I allow for that change to happen, right? And when we practice the Dharma, the change that happens is that the people that we do not like, we start to like them. The people we don't like so much, we start to like them better, right? And the people that we already like, we start to like them even more, right? We're not making any enemies with that. But we are turning all the enemies of those that we don't like or don't know, we turn them all into friends. Just as this white and this black. It is not that keeps changing, but everything becomes in the white. You believe that's possible? You believe that we can generate a mind that wishes all sentient beings to be free of suffering? That has compassion for each and every sentient being? Huh. Do you believe it is possible to have a mind that hates every sentient being? No.
Yes.
You think you can hate each and every sentient being in every moment?
Not every moment.
Not every moment. Do you believe that you can have loving kindness and compassion for each and every sentient being in every moment?
We have to train ourselves.
Huh? We have to train ourselves. That's true. That's true. But you think we have the capacity to be trained like that?
I think provided we keep on listening, think like this from you.
But there is a feeling like this is a possibility,
Yeah, this is
right?
possible.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Hating everyone at the same time, again, and it's not possible with our mind. But loving everybody is possible with our mind, right? So some people say, so therefore, that means that is our nature. So we have the nature, the capacity inside us to do this. We just have to transform the conceptions that are interfering with that,
Right.
which are based on emotion. And we have to bring reason to that. Right? Then we can live up to what we really are. And when that compassion starts to arise in the mind for each and every sentient being, the mind becomes more peaceful. True? You already felt that when you were doing that just with yourself, with one experience. The mind becomes more peaceful. So when we can do that with all sentient beings, the mind becomes more peaceful. And when the mind is more peaceful, we get from the doing state, we go to the being state. Right? We stop the doing because the mind is peaceful. There's no reason to run away anymore. I can just be. Right? Then we become real human beings instead of human doings. Then we live up to our potential. And I think when we look at people like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, not people, sentient beings, not sentient beings, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the Dalai Lama, they are so in the present moment, fully present for whoever is there, loving you to pieces, whoever you are. you know, all the time. So when they can do it, means we have the capacity to do it, right? So we can learn it. It's just training. It's just training. True. You had a question? Long time ago. I think you remember? Sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but
Yeah, it was to do with reasoning. Why is it that in Buddhism they advocate using the reasoning mind as the mind that will overcome the delusion? Why is that mind considered the most effective or powerful? Because what if I believe that yes, this is true, like if I touch my hand on the fire, it hurts, it burns, but I mean that's not a very good example, but I'm using it to say, but I still continue to do it. So yes, I believe that it makes sense that everybody wants happiness and does not want suffering. I believe that is true, but that is not a strong enough motivation for me to change the way that intellectual reasoning is
the
not
intellectual
strong.
reasoning that we use, such as all sentient beings want to be free of suffering and they want to be happy, is not strong enough for me to change my habit of the way I'm acting, reacting, right? So at the moment we are emotional beings, right? And so in order to be able to change that habit, we have to actually re-educate ourselves. And we do that with reasoning, that to show that the way we are reacting is out of touch with reality. It's not based on reality at all. It is based on the opposite of reality. Because our attachment and aversion, our reactivity, our emotional reactions
That's what it's trying to
are based on the self-grasping mind. Right? So we have a very, very, very strong habit to react like that. And so then hearing the reasoning 1 time, 2 times, 10 times is not going to do it. And hearing one reasoning is not enough. Right? So we need to hear it again and again and again and again before something in us says, I've been following this mind all the time, but actually what I'm seeing now, and even when we can see it, very difficult to change it. Right? Because we have this habit since beginning of our lives. So you cannot say, there is one reasoning that should be strong enough to take me out of it. No, it's not enough. You need to understand that the self is a complete illusion, doesn't exist at all the way it appears to us. Then every reaction that comes from that you believe so strong in, you have to see that also doesn't make any sense. Because it's based on something that doesn't exist. Right? Then you have to question, then what am I doing? And how is this all coming together the way I am reacting to things? Right? Then you have to see that you look into the delusions themselves and you see they appear as if they're going to give me what I need. They appear as if they're going to protect me from harm. But I ain't going to check, is that really true? Is that what they're doing? And when you really look into it, you see they're not doing that. That you have to hear 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, 200 times, right? So this is why we say that practicing the Dharma starts with listening. Not one time. We don't get it in one time. We don't get it. The mind is, it's a stupid mind, right? This emotional mind. It doesn't have any wisdom. Just a reaction, emotional reaction. Lacks wisdom. It has some type of wisdom because it is taking care of us, right? In a limited way of being. Very limited way. Short term, it takes care. Long term, it creates only problems. And because it helps us short term, we believe that, oh, it works, it helps. And because we have no alternative, that's the only thing that we have. So the belief is very, very strong, has many layers. And so listening, observing the mind, meditating, listening, observing the mind, meditating, listening, talking, discussing, challenging, then after, depending on your imprints, right? Some people, they see it like that and they can change their mind. Other people, they hear it 30 years and it still doesn't really dawn, right? And so there is nothing wrong with that, right? We need a lot of merit to make changes, a lot of merit. Right? So don't think that you're not successful if you don't get it. You're not successful if you don't apply it. You're not successful. No. We are so stubborn, It's very difficult. So you just repeat, and you just repeat, and you just repeat. And you think deeply about the reasonings. And then you check your own behavior. Right? And I think that having that observing mind, what am I doing? How am I thinking? How am I reacting? How is the reality? Oh, I'm not functioning in accordance with that, because to me it appears it is like that. But it says this in the text. That observation already will loosen your holding on to these reactions and holding on to that as being completely true. Right? So you're not completely occupied with the doing, but there is part of you start observing it. That lessens the impact of what you're doing. Right? So when you do that, it's fantastic. That's fantastic. Right? I'm going to look at some questions here. Could you do a guided Tonglang? What time is it? It is already 4 o'clock. So sorry. By having compassion and helping others too much when they ask for it can make them complacent, and it can rather do more harm than good because they stop working hard. Would Buddhism recommend a boundary for helping someone that they do not become complacent and work hard? So I think, no, Buddhism doesn't talk about that, but Buddhism talks about where do you help sentient beings in? Right? So if we keep help sentient beings in whatever they find difficult in samsara, and they never, because of that, they can never learn to find their own solutions, it's maybe not so clever. Right? So if you want to be more wise, then, and you see that they have a capacity to do something themselves, you could say, you could somehow invite them to, it's not that you say, I'm not going to help you because you can do it yourself, but maybe they need some help with a little step in the process. And you say, let's do it together, or you do it, and wherever you get stuck, I'm here and I'll explain you how to make that little step. So you try to empower people. You try to let people do as much as they can themselves, right? Eventually, the real work we cannot do for other people. People have to do it themselves, right? You can just explain, this is how it is. Then you have to apply it. So I would use that also in normal life, right? If you, right? If you sit here on your cushion and you say, oh, I need some water, and I get up and I get you water, and then you say, oh, you also need this, and then I run away, and then I come back with that, and right? I can also teach you how to get the water and teach you where all the rest is what you need, right? And then you, next time you can do it yourself. But as long as I keep doing it for you, I will have to keep doing it for you, right? So that is, I don't think that's a good way of helping others. Please say something about clairaudience and clairvoyance. What would you like to hear? So when we realize shamatha, calm abiding, or we realize emptiness, these qualities naturally come. Right? We don't have to do anything for that. And then we use them for the benefit of others, right? If we can benefit somebody by using these qualities, then we use them. Otherwise, they're just byproducts, not really interesting. How to overcome conflicting emotions. One moment mind thinks something, then one time it feels good and connected really good emotions feels good. What is right? How to know? So you need to develop your wisdom, right? So when we practice the Dharma, we start to relate in a different way to our emotions, to our feelings, and that takes time. That takes time. It's already difficult to see what is what in the mind, and where is it coming from, and why is it like this today, and so you can ask these questions to yourself, and then observe, and you gain more knowledge in that way. And then with that knowledge, you can maybe come to a hypothesis, and then on the basis of that, you check that. And if it is not correct, you adjust it a little bit, We need to learn ourselves. Yeah. Nobody can tell us, right? Our own mind is our domain. We need to become master of that. Nobody else can do that. So when you go to someone and say, oh, I have this problem in my mind, this is happening, what do I do? But I can never do that for you. You need to do that by developing the skills. And in the beginning, you can start discovering, wow, there is so much conflict in my mind, there is so much suffering in my mind. What do I do with all that? Yes, that is for most of us is the situation. And so then, I don't know, I always advise people to start with 5 minutes just observing the mind per day. Observe your mind, sit with your mind, be with your mind. Then start embracing whatever's happening. Don't have aversion for that. Right? There is suffering there, and then we have aversion. Oh, I don't like that. Don't want to go there. But that's not going to help. So even if there is aversion, if there are difficult parts, there are painful parts, and we have to somehow keep motivating ourselves that we keep connecting to that, keep looking at it. And just connecting with it and looking at it are part of the solution. Right? That initiates the solution. And then when the solution comes, more information comes. With that, more wisdom can grow. Right? And then slowly, we learn to understand how our mind works. The more we understand how the mind works, the more control we have. Control comes from knowing the mind. Right? Control is not like I'm in control, like I'm holding some puppets. Control is that you know so well that even when things pop up, there is not a tendency to run after it or to push it away. Things can just be. Right? But we need a lot of practice. Nothing comes easy. It's like we want to grow this huge tree, right? This big oak tree. And we say, how can I do that quickly? We just have to pour water, give it fertilizer, give it sunlight, make sure all the conditions are there, and then slowly that tree will grow. That tree will grow, right? We cannot stop growing that tree. The tree will keep growing. So the same with our Buddha potential, right? We keep nourishing it, giving it the information again and again and again. And then slowly, we gain some knowledge, we gain some understanding, we gain some wisdom. right? How are we feeling here? We are at 4 o'clock. We are already over 4 o'clock. How are you guys?
I have a question.
How are you? I ask a question, you give me a question back. How are you feeling? I promise you to feel good at the end.
Yeah, definitely feeling better.
You're feeling better?
Yeah.
Better.
Good?
Calm.
Calm? Cool. Fantastic.
Today, all of us are going to get ice cream from you.
You were not here all day. You always make ice cream.
There's maybe upstairs
Yeah.
something left for you. He will get it for you after. You'll feel better, right? And it wasn't easy, right? You faced certain aspects in yourself which were not so nice, difficult to be with, and you did that, and you feel better. You have to remember that, right? Wow, that was not an easy journey, but I feel better. That gives you the courage to do next time again a journey like that. Right? I hope I didn't push you too far or too much. Otherwise, you take a little break and you wait till you feel like, yeah, now I want to go back. Tell me your question. I'm not sure if I can answer it.
I'm not sure again. But well, I asked you on Thursday, so maybe you can cover it on Sunday about the different
On Monday.
meditations for shamatha and then meditation, bodhicitta and meditation, wisdom emptiness.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that. Sorry. Can you send the question to me, and then tomorrow night I will talk about it. Okay. So there was a question about how to do the meditations on shamatha, shamatha, emptiness, and bodhicitta. How you to mix them together. Yeah. Yeah, that's a little bit complicated and.
Interesting.
Interesting as well. Yes. Yes. So. Can you do something with what we learned today? Yeah? You can always come back for more. So what if we dedicate then all the merits from having been here today and having gone through this little journey together? So we can just go very quickly over the day and see all the effort that you made and all the clearing that you did in your own mind and all the good qualities that arose in dependence on that. And then see that all that, having done that, has created so much merit, so much merit. And so then we dedicate the merit to make sure that that merit is going to ripen in a way that we would like to see it ripen. And I mean, what can we do without a guru, you know? So let's first dedicate the merit for the very quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that he may be with us very, very, very soon, teaching us the Dharma in his incredible ways, so that we keep learning from him and benefiting from his amazing example. And then we can also dedicate that merit to the long life, the long and healthy life of all our teachers, especially His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And then you can dedicate for your own teachers, for their long life. And then we can dedicate that little light of compassion that has started growing in our heart today, that might grow further and further. And whatever hasn't woken up, whatever from our compassion capacity hasn't woken up yet, that might wake up in the future. And then we can dedicate that with the merits that we have gathered today, that when our heart opens more and more, that we can be of greatest benefit to everyone around us. Whether that is by just being silently present in our own mind, in our own heart, or whether that is by engaging in activities. May whatever we do just be of benefit. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you for everyone being here online. Thank you for your questions. And we have on Monday and Tuesday, we still have a teaching at 6:30 till 8 on bodhicitta. So we will go further into how to generate bodhicitta. We arrived at equanimity, and I might not teach that much on equanimity because I did it today, but then we go into how we develop bodhicitta. So we have 2 more classes to do that. Okay, so I hope to see you then. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this session. Before everyone leaves, we have our donation boxes at the back as well as on the landing.